So before I get started, I do have a second channel. It's going to be stuff unrelated to anime and mangas. Basically, I'm looking at doing like kind of like analysis style videos for video games, music, maybe even TV shows, etc, etc. So I'm planning to launch that next week. So if you are interested in more content from myself or any of those ideas, please go and subscribe. Most likely, I'm going to be uploading Tuesday and Thursday, and maybe one time on the weekend on that second channel, and then the main channel here, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, all anime. Second channel, not anime and manga. So if you're interested, go and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Link will be in the description below, as well as in the comment section. So thank you. It's without a doubt that being a manga artist is extremely excruciating. Authors are pushed to their limits, physically, mentally, emotionally, to produce a series on a weekly basis in terms of storytelling and artwork. And some people do this extremely well, and some people don't. And I don't mean in quality, but I mean in how they handle a week-to-week workload of being a manga artist. That's why a lot of people have assistants. That's why a lot of people work in pairs or duos, whatever. But there is obviously sole people that work completely by their own. Regardless, even with assistants and everything like that, it is still a grueling task to continuously create a story and keep up the incredible artwork that you may produce on a week-to-week basis, trying to keep that consistency throughout the years. And when you do that for so many years, it becomes a hassle. The passion that you once have for your own series slowly turns into a desire to quit, a desire to stop doing your series, or a desire to, stop working. So grueling, it's so tempting, it's so potentially revitalizing to stop this crazy workload that you've been doing for years, just for 1 week, not have to reach deadlines and have them be up to, a certain amount of standard, and then the opportunity arises of your content being absolutely scrutinized or destroyed by critics. There's probably a lot more negatives to being a manga artist than positives. One thing that's always interested me about Ishida is his kind of approach to the industry and how he writes a story. And he is an artist that is very unknown to the world. No one really knows what he looks like. No one really knows who he is. Honestly, he's kind of just, a blank page. No one knows anything really about him. He slowly released small snippets of himself, and he even inserted a lot of his emotions and, I guess, concepts surrounding himself into Tokyo Ghoul. And this can be found in a lot of different characters, but more specifically a character he pointed out on his own, which is Uta. What I'm about to read you is a letter that he posted alongside the final chapter. It will be in the final volume, I believe, and it's basically just like a insight of Sue Ishida and who he is as a person and his upbringing and how he became a manga artist. And it really kind of puts in perspective the hardships of being a manga artist, but also how it affects people mentally and the toll it takes on one's emotions and drive to continue doing their series for so many years. The most interesting thing about Uta is that after you read the letter, it kind of makes sense on how Ishida depicts himself as Uta, a character with no face, a character you realistically know nothing about. The letter kind of emphasizes that heavily with the emotion that Ishida portrays. It gets rather deep in the letter, and it's actually rather saddening, to be completely honest. So if you do want to read the letter for yourself, because I am about to read it out now, or you want to read alongside, there will be a link in the description, as well as most likely in the comment section. It's like a multiple part translation, so there's like 5 different parts, I believe. So this letter is from Sue Ishida regarding the final chapter of Tokyo Ghoul and his journey. I've already handed in the final manuscript, and now I'm writing this letter. I would have written 4 comas at the end of the volume as usual, but I had a hard time writing what comes afterwards in such a format, so I thought that I would write an afterword instead. Tokyo Ghoul began its serialization in September of 2011. 7 years have passed since then. My life has revolved around chasing the deadline week after week. I felt that if I took a break, I wouldn't be able to bring myself to draw again, so I refused to give myself a break. Now that the series has ended, I'm finally living a life where I haven't had a deadline looming over me for the first time in 7 years. I wonder how I used to spend my time in the past. If I want to be frank about how I currently feel, should I say it feels liberating? Tokyo Ghoul has been something that was intimately intertwined with my life, something that dominated my time and emotions, and something that changed my relationships with other people. There was good that came with it, but oftentimes there was more bad than good. Because of this, I felt like I was finally being released from a cage after being trapped in for so long. But it's manga. There's no reason for you to be pressured so much by it, people say with such a laugh. But to me, manga has always been by my side as a huge obstacle. From the original Volume 7 onwards, my stance regarding the manga changed. I took on impossible amounts of work to try and push myself. I cast away all sorts of things from my life and put all of my time into work. I think it was because I was trying to get closer to Kaneki, who's been subjected to torture. I've developed complications in my body. I was scared at first, but after seeing all sorts of symptoms show up every month, I resigned myself to the fact that this was the kind of body I had. The most striking part to me was that I lost my sense of taste. No matter what I ate, everything would taste the same. Even though the symptoms were different, I felt like I turned into a ghoul. I was surprised by to what extent the human spirit is tied to the body. There may be some readers who are disappointed by this, but I haven't thought of drawing Tokyo Ghoul itself as fun. I hate working. Why am I drawing manga? These doubts grew ever more in my mind. My family moved a lot due to my father's work. By 6th grade of elementary school, I lived in Tokushima, Tokyo, Kanagawa, Saga, and Fukuoka. I even lived in Taiwan when I was in kindergarten. I was in an endless cycle of making friends and parting ways with them, so I never developed any childhood or close friendships. My relationship with my family grew stronger as a result, but because my father was so strict, my home felt incredibly cramped to me. I liked playing games when my father wasn't around. Drawing wasn't so bad either. It was sometime around the 1st grade of elementary school that I'd play with my older sister by drawing pictures. We'd assemble bundles of paper and draw fantastical manga about going on adventures and involving dragons and swords. Eventually, I wanted the real professional tools. If you started with Shinken Seminar at the time, you would receive achievement points and save them up for a free gift. Knowing that I would exchange those points for a Become a Mangaka set, I worked hard to save up those points. I think it took several months to save up because the set was so expensive, point-wise, and of good quality. I finally saved up the points, and once I obtained the manga cassette, I grasped the G-pen for the first time in my life. When I dipped the pen in the ink and drew a line on the stiff Kent paper, I got the feeling that I had opened a forbidden door. For a little while, I spent time feeling like I was a mangaka, when one day my hand slipped and spilled ink on the tatami mat. I watched the scene despondently, wondering why my exasperated mother was wiping the spilled ink off the mat with steaming hot rice. Is it that good at absorbing things? I couldn't endure it, and so I sealed the manga cassette. I wouldn't hold a pen again for more than 10 years after that incident. Who knows, if I hadn't spilled ink at that time, I might have become a super genius mangaka. I remember writing gymnast for this prompt in school anthology. From when I was born up until the first year of junior high, I was very thick and so overweight that I looked like a pig, but I had fairly good motor skills. Mat competition and horizontal bar were my forte, and I also did backflips. Though in reality, I had no desire to become a gymnast. For some reason, I thought that I'd feel guilty if I wrote that my dream was to become a mangaka. These weren't most memories from my junior high school days, but I found it easier to study back then. My parents kept nagging at me to study and study. I liked English, so when I was in my 2nd year of junior high, I took the grade 2 English proficiency exam, which was the highlight of those days. Apart from that, I don't really understand English that well. My parents scolded me as my grades dropped. I didn't want to be reprimanded again, so I kept studying. When I got the highest grade in school, I happily announced it to my father, and he said, keep it up for next time. Looking back on that, that might have been his way of telling me that I did a good job, but back then I thought there's no point even if I do my best, and so I lost all meaning in studying. I wanted to get away from my parents, so I applied for schools that had dormitories. I enjoyed the dorm life, and I most of my time just playing games. My grades were beyond horrible, and I was at the bottom of my class. The content I studied in school just didn't hold my interest. I also began drawing via the internet. Although I started out by drawing with a mouse, I bought a pen tablet and began drawing color illustrations on my PC. I began going around looking for jobs, but I ended up not doing anything because there wasn't any job that I wanted to do. The only jobs that I could apply for required expertise that you could only learn in school, but because I hadn't been interested in the content in school back then, it was impossible for me to apply. Left all alone, I fretted over what I should do. I fought a lot with my parents, but in the end, after being screamed at by my father, I gave up and agreed to go job hunting. My memory is a bit hazy, but on that occasion, I seem to have told him, I'm dead. I wonder if it was those words that broke me, because it eventually allowed me to choose a path other than finding employment. The path that came to my mind at the time was becoming a mangaka. After studying manga and heading to Tokyo, I received an assistant position referral from Matsuo-san, who was in charge. For some time, I gratefully worked under Hara Yasuhisa sensei of Kingdom. I really was a useless assistant and I only caused trouble, but I learned many things under his tutelage. I remember receiving a huge shock being impacted by his flaming passion the first time I saw a manuscript drawn by a pro like him. Hara sensei has always been standing at the top of the magazine since then, and he is still a huge feature who supports it to this day. He is truly amazing and I absolutely respect him. I only listed hardships, but there are plenty of good things that happened as well. I was able to request songs from my favorite artists from the anime: Unravel, The Saints, Seasons Die One After Another, Incompetence, Half, Asphyxia, etc, etc. It brings back memories when I listen to them even now. They are very precious songs to me. Through the Hisoka spin-off project for Hunter x Hunter, I was able to meet and talk with Togashi. I have wonderful memories of his experience. Togashi really is a cool and wonderful person. I'm always coming up with storyboards, he'd say, demonstrating it while sprawled over the bare floor, which I would watch while kneeling. During those times, I couldn't tell whether this was reality or just a dream. Before we met, he gave me a letter that had a Hunter x Hunter storyboard written on one side, and it was the storyboard for chapter 351, featuring Hisoka versus Crollo. I can't believe he did something so considerate for me, I thought, deeply touched. It gives me pure happiness that I could get readers to enjoy themselves. Even though drawing for me was tough, if there's someone out there who can take pleasure in it, I can do my best. It may seem like lip service, but that is the best reward and means just about everything to me. I'm truly grateful that I was able to finish Tokyo Ghoul. Once I let go of it, I was able to think a lot about what I had done by drawing this work. I thought a lot about myself, being creative in the creative industry. I was also able to meet lots of great people. During the last half year, I really enjoyed drawing Tokyo Ghoul. I discovered and learned to appreciate many things. Why am I drawing manga? If I asked myself that now, my answer would be because it was necessary. Tokyo Ghoul is a crude, unpolished work, but I love it nonetheless. Those who have been involved with the series, those who have been reading the series, I have nothing but gratitude to whoever is reading this sentence right now. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. While I'm at it, this is a diary entry I wrote 9 years ago. I discovered it recently. I want to bring this immature young man out here and bring shame upon him. Amen to myself of 9 years past. July 7th, 2009. I've arrived in Tokyo. I am living alone. Looking back at my diary, I can see just how rough around the edges I was. I was so foolish, short-sighted, naive. From around second year of technical college, I was such a giant brat who couldn't stop laughing. Compare him to now and I sure have grown a lot. Looking back at the recent diary entries, it acquired to me, why didn't I write a lot? I want to grow as a person, even a tiny bit. Why do the diary entries from my technical college days have nothing but dreams written in them? I must have been asleep for quite some time. Right now I'm creating storyboards that I can bring to Shueisha. I'm bringing them in tomorrow. It's a storyboard about war, though I'm not sure whether I can draw a sci-fi with my skills as they are now. There have been times where I've been at loss, when I've had regrets, like what was the point of me going to technical school for 5 years? Or would you be living a better life if you tried harder? Stuff like that. But everything in the past is connected to the present. Every mistake, every bit of suffering, every little success is creating the person that I am today. If I can acknowledge myself now, that will acknowledge everything in the past. All my failures are part of who I am today. If I am happy now, I owe it to my past and of course to my present self. I can't acknowledge myself 100%, but I kind of like who I am. Then I can't be that bad, right?